Jim Graziano, owner of JP Graziano.
Angelo Lollino, and you're now tuned in to the Grown Up Italian podcast.
We got some mild Giardiniera.
Giardiniera.
Is it No, it's Giardiniera.
Giardiniera.
Well, you guys say Giardiniera.
Well, yeah, it's like saying prosciutto instead of prosciutto.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So you guys correct each other? Like if someone comes and orders Giardiniera, you say it's Giardiniera?
I do always take my time with somebody, and I tell them, pretend it starts with a J. So they say Giardiniera, because a lot of people call it like
Giardiniera?
Giordano or something like that.
Giardiniera.
Go like this with your hand, and it comes out a lot smoother. And then they get a big laugh and a smile on their face, and they say it, and then, we keep it moving.
So we got the mild and the hot. I stay far away from the hot.
Yeah, you don't like spicy, huh?
It scares me. I'm forever scarred when it comes to hot. I feel the culture in Chicago, everything's spicy.
I agree. Hot peppers is our default. A lot of places only carry hot. A couple pizza places I sell our giardiniera to, they don't even carry mild. It's kind of like, what would you call it? Geese or guts, right? If you don't eat hot, you don't get no giardiniera.
Or a beef place will do sweet peppers, and they'll just basically green peppers that they grill a little bit, and they're big chunks, so it's not.
So
giardiniera.
being that we're talking about giardiniera, how do you actually make? Is it pickled?
Yeah. So what I love about this is that every culture has something like this, all the way to Japanese kimchi. It's just a way to preserve the vegetables. It's pickled in the vinegar. And then what the Italians in Chicago did was rinse off that vinegar and pack it in oil. And that's why our giardiniera is unique.
That's the difference.
That's
I was
the
wondering
difference,
that.
right. Because
ours is in vinegar.
In vinegar. And in Italy, it's like big chunks of cauliflower and
Yes.
carrots and celery and stuff like that, and it's just packed in the vinegar.
Yes.
So ours is, obviously it's just still a rough cut, we would consider it, but we rinse off that vinegar and then they pack it in oil.
Olive oil?
Olive oil. Some you get olive oil. Anything that's, where it's a large production for cost-wise, it's vegetable oil for sure.
Yeah.
And you guys have peppers in yours.
Yeah, so what makes the source of the heat in our peppers is serrano peppers. It's not like a jalapeno pepper. And then traditionally, giardiniera means gardener. So it's stuff from the garden.
Yeah.
Carrots, cauliflower, the red and green bell pepper, and then ours has olives in it, which is another point of contention. I don't know.
Is that the muffalata spread?
Muffalata is a different product, but there's whole mozzarella or salad olives in our giardiniera, and there's Italian Chicago purists out there that say olives don't belong in giardiniera because olives don't grow in a garden, right?
They're a
fair
vine.
point.
Yeah. Vine, right.
So, but olives aren't ours because I think they're fantastic. And then we did move into the muffalata offerings as well, hot and mild. And traditionally, I took that from that's a New Orleans specialty. The muffalata sandwich, the muffalata.
Yeah, we had that down there.
Yeah, we were just down there for St. Joseph's,
Right.
and we were with Louis Prima's daughter Lena, and I was actually impressed because I'm a little when it comes to sandwiches, I always imagine, okay, I could make it better.
You're a sandwich
I always
snob.
compare. I compare. So the muffalata, I was so impressed.
Yeah, Central Grocery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the gold standard.
They were
closed for renovations.
and we went right next door.
Went to Frank's.
Yeah.
And it was delicious.
Right.
But everybody says Central
Grocery is that's the gold standard. Good Sicilians, that started back up in the day. They have that, big Sicilian community down there. And I was always infatuated with that sandwich. So we started making our own here. And I would take the Castello Vedrano olives, crack them, pull the seed, chop it up, take our mild giardiniera, chop that up, get the ratio right. And then eventually it got so popular, I sent it out to my giardiniera manufacturer and I said, can you replicate this? And they did. So, it is more of an olive spread, but ours doesn't give an overly olive flavor. Mm-hmm. So it's really if you just like the fine dice spread or the rough cut vegetables. But, hot giardiniera is the iconic Chicago condiment.
Yeah. And I noticed and this is basically a dry version of that.
Yeah.
So do you like base this on the bread, basically?
This can get folded into anything. And my idea for that came from looking everybody using everything but bagel seasoning.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was
Okay.
like, man, that's pretty straightforward.
So is there a crazy guy out there that's putting this in cream cheese?
We're working on it.
Yeah, I
You know,
was gonna
another
say.
crazy guy that might be throwing it in some gelato. Me and Angel
Well,
tried
that's a
something
perfect
out there.
segue to the next product. You gotta explain.
Not a bad idea.
So, guys, we're live in JP Grazianos in their version of meat packing. What's the area this is, Chicago, this is called?
it's called the West Loop, Fulton Market.
Okay.
Yeah, but back in
Randolph
the day,
Street?
Randolph Street, absolutely.
We're live. I feel like this place has been here since the beginning of time. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Just about. The beginning of June is our 86th anniversary.
Congratulations.
That's great.
That's I love going to like old school Italian American enclaves like that. That really been there forever. But we also have Angelo here, who has Vero Gelato and Masa, and Masa's in Elmwood Park, right?
Yeah, Massa's Italian Cafe in Elmwood Park.
I'm learning my way around Chicago, slowly but surely.
They're all at the right places.
There's a lot of Italian enclaves in Chicago. Like, I notice the more I come here, there's places I've never been. Like, you go to Taylor Street, you go to Elmwood Park, then there's Harlem Avenue. It's a lot of little pockets.
Yeah. Right.
And the suburbs became Italian early, so it's a lot of Italian suburbs. So there's a lot to see and do here.
Yeah, so I guess the history of Italian American Chicago, right? For dummies like me that don't know anything about the Italian American culture here, I'm always fascinated when I go somewhere. Like I recently was in Cleveland for a day, and their Little Italy, like I was fascinated because like old neon signs. We went to Rhode Island for a day, same thing. So like, what's the real Little Italy of Chicago?
Big debate, right?
Oh, so it's not
Originally,
clear cut.
one.
It's not clear cut answer.
Yeah, originally, I would have to say Taylor Street,
Yep,
right?
I agree.
And that's where Al's Beef and
Correct.
Mario's
Mario.
and
Italian
Mario's
lemonade,
Ice.
yep.
Okay.
And there's another thing, Chicago Avenue. Is that another area that was very Italian? at
There
some
was a
point?
period, that's actually where my father started on Chicago Avenue. So,
Right.
yeah, there was a period there just north of here, Grand and May, that area had an influence of Italian. And then Harlem Avenue West, kind of the area that Jimmy and I are from, probably in the early 80s.
Yep.
Started to...
Strong run from early 80s to mid to late 90s.
Yep.
And then Elmwood Park, where
Elmwood
you're
Park.
at.
Elmwood Park's
We're from
famous.
Melrose
Elmwood Park is
primarily still
basically
Italian.
Howard Beach. For everybody that's listening, it's like how you doing Beach of Chicago. That's where all the Goombas are.
Elmwood Park, Melrose Park. They still got a real strong Italian, great community out there. But back in the day, like everybody was up there.
What's the area where Maniscalco's from?
Arlington Heights.
Arlington
Yeah,
Heights.
there's no Italians out there.
Yeah. No, what's there's like another part of Chicago that's like very suburban, but it's far, where like they have a very distinct like Italian accent.
Oh, you're talking about Bridgeport.
Oh, Bridgeport, yeah.
Yeah, it's in Chicago. That's another one.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
know if
forgot
it's
that.
I forgot the name.
Bridgeport's big for Italians too, and that's like over by like by White Sox Park. And those are like your South Side Italians that those guys are making. They used to come here and buy all the spices bulk and make the supersata and hang it up in their garage and make the homemade wine every year. Bridgeport, very strong.
They keep the culture
Proud.
alive.
Big time, big time.
I would like to hear.
It's still there.
And still there.
Oh,
right.
it's still kicking.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit about both your like family's histories as far as like when they came here from the other side and what life was like for them when they first moved here, what they did, how this business started, how your business has started.
Might get sentimental here. Man.
That's okay. Part of the
It's
cake.
a family show.
Yeah, sure is.
Go ahead. It's your house, man.
So, quite a long history here. My my great-grandpa came here from Sicily in the early 1900s, and he started on Randolph Street in 1937. But when he first came to, so he was a stowaway on a ship. He was chasing a girl that he was in love with from Sicily. So he snuck on the boat. She was on her way to America, and he couldn't, this is as the story was told to me, he couldn't imagine a day without being with this girl. So he snuck on the ship, and a couple days into the trip, he figured, they're not going to throw me overboard. So he started walking around, and he actually ran into his uncle, who was on his way to America. And he didn't know his uncle was going to America. So it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, I'm chasing this girl. I'm in love. So he met up with a girl on the boat. She was on her way to America to get engaged. Her family had set her. Yeah, her family had set her up with a guy in New York.
Sounds like a script to a movie.
Honestly, man. So he was heartbroken, right? And his uncle's like, come to New York with me. He was a butcher by trade. We'll start you working, and, you know, I'll ship you back to Sicily when we get money for a ticket. His uncle died of a heart attack like a year and a half into being there. So he's in New York. He's young, no money, no language, nothing. Chicago had a very large Sicilian community, and it's actually where like Caprini Green used to be, which is kind of the projects that aren't there anymore, but it was like the projects of Chicago, and they called it Little Hell and Little Sicily. And it was the outdoor markets. And my great-grandpa would go there. And
Wait, hold on. Little Hell and Little Sicily is the same.
It's like one word, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's that.
Far too familiar.
Pat would love that.
There you go.
As a Sicilian, I take offense to that, but that's fine.
I'm Sicilian too, but it's where they all kind of.
There's always a little truth to hurt feelings, you know?
And he would go there, and he would he would grab a couple lemons off the table, throw them in his pocket, go around the corner, sell them. Save up, bought a basket, save up, bought a cart, save up, bought a horse.
So he was a fruit peddler?
Yeah, and he started doing the fruttivendolo. And little by little, he had a shop that he opened up on Grand and Noble. That was his first spot when he saved enough money to buy a building. And he ran the grocery store out of the ground floor, and they lived up on top type of deal. And he had the Italian specialties like we do, but it was like milk, bread, eggs, the whole deal. And then he closed that store right around the Great Depression because he was worried he was going to lose the business and the building. So he closed the business, right? He worked for his father-in-law, who at the time owned a place in Chicago called Chicago Macaroni Company. And he was an importer and a wholesaler. Wow. And he got to understand that business, and he saw a lot of opportunities in the wholesale business. Mm-hmm. So he worked there for a couple years, you know, got back on his feet, able to save some money, reopened Grand Avenue, and then got word on the street that he wanted to get into the wholesale and importing business. Mm-hmm. One of his advantages was his brother stayed in Bagheria, Sicily, never came to America, and he built boxes, cartone, right, out of wood. I mean, we're talking early 30s. And my great-grandpa would go to Italy and Sicily, hand-pick the stuff that he wanted to import. Uh-huh. His brother would make the boxes, so he had that advantage, and they would ship it to America.
So you go back and forth?
Yeah, constantly.
With the boat?
Yep.
That's kind of crazy.
This is early 30s.
Yeah.
Mid-30s.
Yeah.
You know?
So how long was like each trip like to go back and forth?
I think that was over a week at a time.
Definitely. It was
right?
Had to be. 10 days to 2
12
weeks.
days.
Yeah, back then.
It's got to be. I hope I'm not way off there, but it was.
No,
I
that's
mean,
about right.
just sitting on
Goes to show like how far we came along as a community. Like we just ordered things on Amazon.
Right to your door. These guys had to wait 12
so
days.
So he was going back and forth from
right.
Chicago
to Sicily. And he had to
By the way, I got to ask, because geographically, right, you guys aren't near an ocean. There's just like a lake, right?
Well, if you really, really wanted to, the St. Lawrence River runs all the way down to the Great Lakes and the Lake Michigan.
But is that what he did? Like, how was
everything in New York?
So he would have to take a train to New York or something?
To New York from there, right?
And then,
right.
Wow, that's...
But for
I still take the train here sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, just to feel how far it is.
That's incredible.
I wish. It's an overnight Amtrak. It's 24 hours. You're home to Chicago. It's nice. Sleep on the train.
24 hours?
Yeah. Yeah.
That should also be 2 hours.
Yeah, right. But it would come off the track twice. And then, so it really takes you 64 hours, but the tickets say 2.
So he was handpicking products.
And then he started getting into the wholesale business, and he got word out on the street, and somebody said, there's a place on Randolph Street. The guy owns the building. He sells potatoes and onions, you know, because that's what this whole neighborhood was.
Meaning like a lot of
Produce.
Polish? I would say
produce.
Okay.
It was just produce. This guy just
Because I know like Chicago's so heavy with Greek and Polish immigrants.
I don't know what the numbers are now, but not long ago, Chicago had the second largest Polish population to Warsaw.
Yep. Wow.
That makes
Warsaw
sense.
first and then Chicago. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So he came here and he rented out half the building, and it's the half that we're in that ended up being our sandwich shop. And a couple years in, the gentleman that owned the building passed away. His son lived out of state, sold my great-grandpa the building. That was like about 1942. At that point, He shut down Grand Avenue because for a while, for about 5 years, Grand Avenue ran as a retail and Randolph ran as the wholesale. My grandpa and my great-grandma ran Grand Avenue. My great-grandpa, JP, and his oldest son, my Uncle Paul, ran Randolph Street. By 1942, this place blew up, shut down Grand Avenue, brought the whole family over here to Randolph Street, had the whole building, and started his legacy that turned into what's now 86 years old in the same spot.
That's incredible. And I'm sure when he first opened, he wasn't making sandwiches like you are today. It was more of a market.
Yeah,
I would assume.
Sandwiches, I started doing sandwiches when I graduated college in 2005.
So you guys didn't sell
Sandwiches
sandwiches
are
until
brand
2005.
Brand new in the scheme of, an 86-year-old business.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 18.
A lot.
Almost, yeah,
You
18,
can figure
19,
out the
yeah,
math
yeah.
if you want. But I came in after school, after college.
We might have started making sandwiches around the same time.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, because 2005, I was 15.
Yeah?
But,
Well, I just graduated college.
Yeah.
So I got a couple years.
Yeah,
on it,
yeah. But I remember, even, we're talking about, like, back then, we would sell, like, the craziest sandwich then would be, like, chicken cutlet, mozzarella, roasted peppers, and people were like, what? Making a sandwich with that? So just to put in perspective for everybody listening, like,
Well, you
the kind of
started that
times.
craze, right?
Yeah,
Because to me, when I hear a sandwich in New York, it's chicken cutlet. I could tell when New Yorkers come to my sandwich
Just
shop.
ask for chicken cutlet.
Not as much because they know we don't do the hot sandwiches, but they ask for mozzarella and roasted red peppers on every single sandwich that they eat, and also salt and pepper.
That's
We
salt
sell
and pepper?
salt and pepper.
We
I never
would
met
think
so many
about that.
people that need salt on top of prosciutto in my life.
No salt, prosciutto salty enough.
I don't have salt and pepper behind the counter, but I just say yes because I'm not going to go through the whole.
What about someone asks for, like,
go like
mayo?
this.
mayo?
And my guys know too, and they're like, "Yeah, salt and pepper. Yeah, we got it.
Sure.
We were talking about that before because we were saying, like, what is New York's signatures? I asked Sabino, do we have a New York
Yeah, when you think of New York
sandwich?
sandwiches,
Chicken cutlet,
Yeah.
mozzarella, roasted red pepper, salt and pepper.
I
That's
thought
all
everybody in
do.
the world ate that. I thought that was normal.
no.
Yeah.
Is your sub considered, or do you guys refer to it as a hero?
Hero.
Hero,
I
some
snap.
people say sub.
I snap
What
when I
do they
hear
call it
sub
in
grinder.
Philly? Grinders?
Grinders,
Somebody
we don't
calls it
call them grinders.
You guys call it subs.
That's like Pittsburgh or New Jersey
Yes.
or something. It calls them a grinder.
There's
We
another
don't.
word for it too. Hero, grinders, I forget.
Hoagies.
Hoagies, that's
Submarine.
Philly
Can I get a
Sandwich.
submarine?
That's like Frankfurter. My
Right.
grandfather still says Frankfurter. You gonna get a Frankfurter? I'm like, that's all.
What is it?
I try to remind myself to say Frankfurter instead of hot dog.
Do you get mad when customers like order these imported Italian meats with mayo or mustard?
It bothers the shit out of me. Yeah. I mean, I'll do it. You're eating it at the end of the day, right? But if you're putting mayo on a prosciutto sandwich, it drives me nuts. I had a kid. I promise you this happened. He came in. He ordered a prosciutto sandwich. It was like John from Schaumburg or something like that, right? No offense, but that's like suburbs, right?
Yeah.
And he ordered prosciutto, and he said, "Can I have ranch dressing on there?"
Holy smokes.
So
That's
I
what,
was
that
like-
might be where I draw the
I
line.
was gonna say, that made my neck hurt
We were
hearing
banging.
that.
I mean, there was people everywhere, so I didn't have time at that moment to go through it with him, right? But I was
You
like,
don't even
no,
have
we don't
ranch
got
here.
No, we don't have ranch. We don't put ranch on our salads here, much less a sandwich. And I was like, no range, whatever. So you guys kind of see the flow, like you order, you stand in line, you pay, and then you kind of wait in this line, and we call you out. And then when we're rolling, it time out well.
Yeah.
So it was his turn, so his sandwich, he sat in line, he paid the whole deal, came back up, I called him, and he reached for a sandwich, and I said, come a little closer, and I got close to him, and I didn't say it out loud, I just wanted him to know. I said, listen, if you ever order ranch in my fucking store again, I'm going to kindly ask you. And he started laughing his ass. He goes, I really appreciate you telling me that. I promise I won't, stuff like that. But,
People need to be like educated when it comes
Yeah,
to this stuff.
I think so.
We can't let them run like.
But that's part of our
rampant.
job, like the Giardiniera. Like, how do you pronounce it? And
Yeah,
what do you put
yeah,
it
yeah.
on? And that's where we shine. So I'll tell you a million different ways to use this.
So what's the typical Italian American Chicago sandwich with Giardiniera?
Provolone, the most standard to me, like our Italian, provolone cheese, Genoa salami, mortadella, hot capicola, lettuce, tomato, vinegar,
Yeah.
oregano, and Giardiniera.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's a typical.
You can get that pretty much any sandwich shop. You walk in and order an Italian. Some people do like ham instead of a capicola or something like that, but There's mortadella, salami, and capicola on it for sure.
I wanted to ask you and Angelo a little bit about what this whole Italian beef, right? It's a big Chicago thing. But is it really frowned upon that we can't have cheese on it? And like, explain the dip situation. Like,
Yeah, the dip thing is
crazy.
out there.
How they dip the sandwich.
Yeah,
you're
like
saying?
you guys
Nice and
actually like
juicy?
that?
Yeah, if I'm gonna order it, I'm gonna order it easy dip, right? Because I want to be able to eat it.
So I just ordered a half dip. Is that easy dip?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. But no cheese, huh?
No, not cheese whiz for sure.
Definitely not cheese, not like a Philly cheese or
But
something like that.
2 slices of provolone wouldn't hurt it, right?
Beautiful. Yeah. Cheesy beef.
What about if we do a provolone whiz? We just melt down some
We
provolone.
should a can of whipped provolone.
I'm just gonna come here and try to change, like, for my influence. Like, here we go. Let's.
I think it's really just like the purity of it. And the Italian beef started because people didn't have money, right? And they had this meat, and they had all these people to feed, and they're like, how do we feed all these people with this one chunk of meat? And like, how do you guys make your sandwiches? You slice it paper thin, you throw it in the juice to heat it up. Like, cheese wasn't an option. On
you
top
just
of,
didn't have it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gets, but I mean, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, you order mayo on a prosciutto. I've always felt like charging like $5 for somebody to do that. But
penalty
like I said,
fee.
you're
It's
eating
like,
it.
yeah.
Eat what you want. I'll make what you want. As long as you're here,
charge
that's
you
the most
extra.
important thing.
I think
Right?
now's the time I ask like all my Chicago food questions.
Yeah, you got a lot of them. I
Get
know.
it out. We got
Get 'em
you.
out.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's just do all these questions now. Get it out of the way.
Shoot them out.
Why do you guys hate ketchup? Why do Chicago natives or Chicago residents hate ketchup?
I think it's specifically on a hot dog.
Yeah, you got to finish that sentence. We hate
can't.
ketchup on a hot dog.
So on
It just
fries
doesn't
is
belong.
okay.
Yeah, sure.
It's okay.
Because I went to Johnny's Beef in Elmwood Park
Yeah.
and we asked for ketchup and they squirted it on a wax paper
Yeah,
and
turn it
twisted it. I was
Get
like,
outta here.
I felt like I was buying a 20 bag of weed. I was like, what is this?
It is like a dime bag of ketchup.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, what's going on here?
That's funny.
I could just tell they were all like,
Yeah, but you don't go to. I mean, Johnny's has hot dogs, right? But they don't. You don't go there for a hot dog.
no, you go there for an Italian
You go
beef.
for a beef.
Yeah.
Italian ice.
Yeah,
But they also-
they don't give a shit. It's just that they know that they got to put it in a little wax paper for you.
Yeah, but there's places like
That's so
Gene
funny.
and Jude's where they don't have.
They don't have ketchup.
No.
Neither there.
Jimmy's, where it used to, Jimmy's on like
Yeah, Pulaski,
Western.
Jimmy, same thing.
Pulaski, thank you. And they would have billboards that said no ketchup.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you make a big deal out of it not being
with
on
like
a hot
the big
dog.
X in it.
You
Like
guys
a no parking
take,
sign, but a ketchup bottle.
yeah.
Right.
So like, exactly. So if you go to Gene and Jude's and you have order fries, you're not getting any ketchup.
You're not. No.
Yeah, it's
And there
not-
used
it's
to
not there to
be-
have it.
There used to be a Cock Robin's, which was an ice cream shop
Yep.
next door, and that
It's like a Baskin Robbins.
What did you call it?
Yeah,
Cock
it's called
Robin.
Cock Robin's.
Cock, like the
Cock,
rooster?
like a, yeah.
Yeah,
Like the-
Like a rooster? Yeah.
That's not what I was.
Where's your head at?
That's Baskin Robbins' husband.
So this Cock Robin's place next door would, at some point, started to sell ketchup. So everybody knew if
They
you
were an
wanted
ice cream
ketchup,
joint.
you would
Yeah.
go in. It was
Across
an
the
ice cream
street
shop.
from
That's
the hot
smart.
dog stand.
Sell
That is
little,
smart.
little packets of ketchup. So
Little dime bags of ketchup.
I don't know. I'm going to be honest.
I love
man.
that.
I don't mind a little ketchup on my hot dog.
I don't care. I mean, I'm not a hot dog stand. I am one of those, like, you don't, if you're over the age of 7 years old,
You're
you don't
purist?
put ketchup on the hot dog. That's
Where's
just
your
straight
stance
up.
on this, John?
I'm not a ketchup on the hot dog guy. It's not. I have no like skin in the game. I think I've come to the point. I like onions, like the red onions we do in the city. I like a little
The
mustard.
yeah, the
like
Vidalia
those,
onions.
like the cooked ones a little
Yeah,
bit.
I like those too.
Yeah, I'm not a
What about
sauerkraut.
no sauerkraut?
Yeah, a little bit. Depends.
See, you think ours is weird. You put sauerkraut
Yeah,
on a hot dog.
yeah. We like the normal.
Isn't that how they start?
For me,
That's what German people do. No,
I don't
That's
like Frankfurter?
Yeah, but
yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Frankfurter, yeah.
So all right, let's
Sounds like a Frankfurter.
Frankfurter.
we're gonna compare our glizzies right now.
You taught me that today.
I told John. Do you guys know what glizzy is?
Yeah.
Do not.
It's what the cool New York
Hey.
kids call hot dogs.
I never see. I'm still calling them Frankfurters. That's
So
my problem.
in New York,
I haven't
You're
been
like
cool.
3 generations
I've never been
behind
cool.
on that. Right,
My,
right.
you look at my music playlist. I'm not that cool. I promise.
so all right, I would say a typical New York hot dog would be sauerkraut, mustard, and some people put mustard and ketchup.
And ketchup. Yeah,
right?
that's like a
And then the
traditional
other
New York hot
option,
dog. Yeah.
the other,
That's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
The other option would be those onions that are cooked.
The stewed
that has
onions.
sweet sauce.
Caramelized onion,
Yeah, like
yeah.
caramelized onions.
Yeah,
But they got like a red something tinge to it. It's not
called
ketchup.
Vigilia onions.
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
See, they come in a bag. I actually put that on a roast beef sandwich.
Okay,
Roast beef,
good.
cheddar,
Right.
onions, less tomato, mayo. So yeah, those are like the two standard. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. A Chicago dog is onion, sport
Raw.
peppers,
Raw onions, right?
raw
white.
Right. Yeah, chunks,
Yeah,
like little
chopped
cube.
white raw
Yeah.
onion. Yes.
Sport peppers.
Yes, sir.
We don't even have sport peppers in New York.
Really?
For
No.
for people, sport peppers like a little, like
Spear peppers.
It's like yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a pepper that's been cured in vinegar, right? Kind of like the Giardiniera,
Yeah.
but it stays in that vinegar. And it's its own pepper. It's not a serrano pepper.
Yeah, it stays whole. Right.
Yeah,
It is its
and tomato
Slices of tomato,
relish.
and,
pickles,
relish.
Yeah. Right?
pickles. Relish. Pickle.
bright green relish
Yeah.
is the big thing. Pickle spear,
Yeah.
for sure.
So a
Celery
double pickle,
salt.
basically.
Can't forget about that.
Jesus.
And the yellow mustard.
And we're weird for putting sauerkraut on it. That's a lot of combo on that hot dog. That's a lot of stuff.
I'm surprised that you got that many people making sauerkraut that well, where it's like
And
No,
say it's good.
all packaged.
It's not good. It's
all
just we
packaged.
just happen to eat
Sauerkraut
it.
is typically on a
Yeah.
beef.
I could be
Yeah,
completely
for us.
wrong, but I
Right.
think sauerkraut helps the digestive system.
Yeah, they
Sauerkraut's
say it
good for
does.
your stomach.
They say it's good
Yeah.
for your gut. Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't listen to my
Help you get
trainer.
that hot dog down.
As you can tell, I don't take a lot of advice from my trainer, but he's always telling me, like, yo, when you eat these steaks, you should eat sauerkraut. And I'm like, well,
You want to know? the
You know,
weird-
you're going to
it's
start a new trend with the sauerkraut.
I want to know who had the market in the sauerkraut.
like some German
that-
family made a ton of money
A
off that.
gazillion
Still
percent.
do.
That's how that started. And that's how that started.
The weirdest hot dog, the best hot dog I ever had, nothing to do with being Italian, Chicago, New York, was in Reykjavik, Iceland. They make a lamb hot dog with chipped onions, like the roast, like they fry them like crispy
Okay.
onions,
Yeah.
mayonnaise, like sautéed onions, and bacon. It's the most delicious thing I ever had in my life.
like a chili dog almost.
I don't know. It was like not liquidy though. It was the best hot dog I ever had in my life. One boot on the middle of the nowhere on the water in Reykjavik, Iceland.
I guess this brings me to my next question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Wow.
Not to me.
No, I mean, I don't
Big
view it
question.
No?
that way, no.
I got to be honest. I think a Chicago dog is more of a sandwich than ours.
Why? Because all the stuff on
Yeah,
it?
the tomato, pickles, mustard.
I don't know.
Is it
I don't
hamburger?
think. Is it cheese? That's what I was just going to ask. Is it cheeseburger a sandwich?
I think
When you go to a diner, right?
Uh-huh.
And it says sandwiches, and then it says burgers, right?
Uh-huh.
You don't
You're
find
right.
hot dogs under the sandwich thing. You don't find burgers under the sandwich list.
All right, that's a good.
Just in my opinion.
He's a
That's
purist.
just
He's
my-
a purist.
That's just my 2
Don't
cents.
put ranch on prosciutto. One more. I got so many food questions. It's bad. But I always ask these same questions because I like to hear people's opinions, especially the Chicago boys. But deep dish pizza, are you guys claiming it or not?
And you're more of the pizza guy than me. You can go first on that.
I'm going to have to say yes. Yeah.
So you love deep dish?
I don't love deep dish. I'll eat
You
it.
took a leap with that.
That's like the sauerkraut. Like we treat
Do
sauerkraut.
you claim it? Yes. So you love it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say.
But
love
as you get older, it's tough to eat,
it is.
right?
It
Tough
is.
to digest.
So I
It's a
had
lot.
deep dish here once, and it's super, super, super heavy, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Once in a while, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's tomatoes and melted cheese and a good crust, and
But that's not the only pizza
not
we
pizza,
have. I mean,
right.
we have
Tavern.
We have Tavern. We have great pizza here.
Yeah.
See, what I'm trying to do, and I heard this from a kid that I know who sells pizza ovens, Forza Pizzas, great kid. He's like on a mission to get, he doesn't like when people call our pizza tavern style, right? We need to call that Chicago style pizza.
Yeah, and
right?
get out of that.
Get out of it. Circle
Deep
pizza,
dish.
cut it in squares. Call that Chicago pizza.
Yeah.
Don't call it tavern
I agree.
style.
So do
Now,
you
it
want to start a
started in the
petition and do
tavern.
this?
Yeah, we're
We'll get
working
it
on
done.
it.
From a
We're
PR
working on it. Can we get
perspective,
your
that's a good
signature on
move.
it?
That's a
Yeah.
very good move because
Yeah.
it gets people's mentality away from
Right.
deep dish, which is
Right.
very controversial.
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And
It's
I don't-
actually
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Deep dish started here from Pizzeria Uno. Is that
Yeah.
right?
It was Uno or Malnati or Giordano's. It had to have been one of them.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah,
that's
you
why
know-
I don't like to discount it, because that's discounting some legacy
Yeah.
industry
business.
people in this Chicago. Like
Yeah.
great people, still running crazy, grew like crazy, great successful, well earned success. I don't like get pissed off when people talk about Chicago deep dish and it's not our pizza. Like, it is our pizza, but when you come over to our home, if we're ordering pizza because it's a Friday night, 9 times out of 10 you're not ordering deep dish. You're
When
ordering-
is the 1 out of 10 that you order the deep dish?
when New Yorkers come over.
That's a great answer.
I didn't mean to set you up like that,
deep
but
dish.
Oh, let's
You
put
know.
them to bed. Let's knock them out.
We're all
and
like
you're
a
done.
food coma.
They're
like
out.
that, yeah.
You're done for hours.
Yeah, but I was always what's up, bro? I was always curious why they cut it into squares though for the tavern style.
Easier to eat.
Yeah, and split it up for more people.
you
I
enjoy
think
it.
that started
Yeah.
as a kind of a poverty thing as well.
Yeah,
That
You
makes
got
sense
this
to
whole
me.
thing, cut it up small.
yeah,
You're
that
asking
does.
these questions because you're from New York? 'Cause you're
I'm
deep-
asking these questions because I know they're gonna go crazy on TikTok. Now let's talk a little bit about your story, your family story, Angelo. 'cause-
Sure. So similar to Jimmy's, or partially similar, my parents came here. My father came in '66 and my mother came in '68. My mother's parents were master tailors, Sicilian descent from Catania, but moved to Florence to be suit makers, and they got recruited by Hart Schaffner Marks, which was a high-end suit maker here. So they got recruited to come here and do that. So obviously they brought my mother and my uncle along. My father came in '66. His parents, my grandparents on my father's side, were merchants there. They had farms. They had a small little vineyard. They pickled different vegetables. They made soppressata. They made capicola. They made everything. With the difference, like all of our families, we made it for ourselves. They made it and
sell.
eventually started to wholesale it, right?
Smart.
So my dad grew up doing that, but my dad was kind of a knucklehead. So he won't agree to that now, but he was definitely a knucklehead. So my grandfather sent him to work for a coffee company there called Sycoff. Sycoff is like our Hills Brothers in Italy. And he developed a passion for coffee, went from lugging coffee sacks around to roasting coffee, and came to Toronto on a trip to visit some friends. They took a drive from Toronto to Chicago, and he met my mother,
Okay.
and ultimately
They
ended up.
fell in love.
Yeah, they fell in love. He moved here. 1968, he opened up his first place on Chicago Avenue, basically an Italian bar, right? In Italy, they
Like
were
the cafe, the cafe
a bar.
like a
Right,
legit cafe,
right.
what you would get, and it was just the Italian community. It was the only place where the Italian went to get a good espresso, legit espresso. And then a couple years later, he bought a coffee roaster. My grandfather gave him the money, bought a coffee roaster, started roasting coffee here. My parents got married. My mother would cook for us in the back of the cafe. There was a coffee roaster on one corner. My mother had a little kitchen there. We got out of school, and that's where we went. So my brother and I were influenced by that.
That's so funny because that's the way exactly it was for us too.
Yeah. So, fast forward, my mother ended up opening up a very successful Italian restaurant here called Ristorante Italia. It was on Harlem Avenue, which is basically that second Little Italy, let's call it. Across the street is Elmwood Park. So heavy Italian community. She opened up there in the late 70s. Eventually, my father moved his plant right next door there. They ended up buying more of the property there, and they pretty much made that their home base. So my brother and I grew up in the business. We were influenced by it. I developed a passion for it. Unfortunately, after 30-something years of marriage, my parents got divorced. So my brother and I said, we're out. We're going to go do our own thing. It was a little bit rough. They both came to this country with nothing, and they built some amazing business. So my brother and I went off, and we started our own company called Fratelli Lollino, Fratelli meaning brothers.
Okay.
Coffee company, basically espresso. And then eventually we got into gelato. We started to make gelato, wholesaling gelato, and here we are, 30 years later. And now my kids are in the business with me.
Awesome.
All three of my kids are doing it. So My wife and I opened up Masa back in 1990. We opened up our first restaurant. And, and today we sell to some of the best operators in Chicago, including Jimmy. Him talking about this place, I get the chills because as a kid, my parents used to come here, and there was a place across the street called Luca Packing. Yeah. And this is
What
where
did they sell? What did Lucas sell?
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, cans of tomatoes, olive oil, stuff
Yeah,
like
and
that.
then if you go to Fulton Market here, you would get your meat. So they would come here and pick up Italian
So it's
specialty
like a real
items.
Italian market.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get the food for the week or.
Yeah, and I would
Everything
always,
you need.
I would always get in trouble because I was a chubby little guy that would come in and they'd have all these barrels lined up right here, right?
Oh, the
Yeah.
olives?
The
all the
olives
different
were
olives.
back in the back, yeah. And the spices used to be up here.
We used to stick our hands in there, right? And we used to eat the olives. And eventually we'd get that
Film on top.
little white film.
Yeah.
What was that film?
Bacteria?
Bacteria?
It's bacteria from your hands. But even if your hands are like super clean, it's the natural oil in your skin.
Yeah.
That when that mixes with the brine,
Makes
it just starts to develop the film.
And nice.
Now we have
distinct
everything
flavor.
closed in here for that reason.
Right.
Or we could just wait people when they come in and when they go out. My dad always says that to me when I'm working. He's like, whenever I took a break. Actually, it would be a funny question to ask you guys, but just, growing up in family businesses, I guess that's something we all could relate to is that, working for our fathers in the family business. How was that for you guys? Was your dad like a little hard on you guys?
a little hard?
Yeah. And I was very close with his father as well. His father was kind of a mentor to me too. He used to come to my restaurant because they lived in that area. But yeah, listen, my old man was tough, man. I mean, tough. It was no bullshit. But my brother and I laugh about it now that we've both found some success. If he wouldn't have been that hard on us,
You guys wouldn't have been the way you are.
yeah, as bad as it was when you think bad, how many pagliats we got,
Yeah.
It's just knocking you back in line.
yeah, man, that's really all it was.
Yeah.
God forbid I slap one of my kids now.
kidding.
Yeah.
It's, and I'm fortunate. I got
You can't do-
I
you
think
can't
we
do
both
that
We
stuff
have
now.
great
No,
kids,
no.
and they learn from us. But yeah, my dad was tough, man.
Me and John always compare like how our dads come from the same town in Italy, and
Where's that? What part?
it's in Salerno.
Okay.
And our town only has like 2,000 people, and like my family, like if you go back just one generation, we had farms, we had sheep, so the work ethic was always like that. But like working for my dad, like a summer job, he would always tease me if I ever ate anything like, oh, I lose money with you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my dad one time. We went out on a Saturday or Sunday. We were living in Jersey, and we came home from church, and we had to get some like bread or something from my grandmother's. And he got it. He went to the bakery, got it in a paper bag, and I came out of the car and I grabbed it by the wrong side, and the bread all spilled on the thing. And he got so mad. I'll never forget him getting mad. And I first had a reaction. I'm like, kind of like, what is this guy making such a fuss about? And then I went back and thought about it. I was like, that for him, that food, when he was a kid, if you dropped that bread on the floor, you had no other bread.
Yeah.
And that bread signifies everything about the man he wants me to be. And it stayed with me forever. But have you met an Italian person? Have you ever met an Italian guy whose father wasn't hard on him? I haven't. I really haven't.
No, not in the generations that we grew up in.
No.
I mean, my dad, same thing. And I mean, I know we grew up in the same way. My dad didn't play games. There's nobody who loved you more, look out for you, protect you, like you guys, I'm sure. Same thing. So my father, what he would do, one thing that's like ingrained in my head, before we changed these doors, when it was like just a warehouse, there were big metal doors and it was two big padlocks, right? And when I was 8 years old, all the way through when I got into this business after school, graduated college, my dad would take off one of the locks, right? And then he'd put the key in the second lock, and he had a way he wore glasses, and he had a way of looking at you over his glasses, and that's the look
Yeah,
you do
I
not want to get from your
It's
father.
like a famous. It's like a famous.
Just right
video.
over,
Yeah.
and just like a laser beam that burns right through you type of look. And he would tell me, when I open up this second lock, you're not my son. And I would have like a lump in my throat, right? Like, oh my goodness. And he would say
little
that
excessive.
to me, a little over the top. A little bit more than tough love, maybe. But, I can't imagine what my grandfather said to my dad, because I'm sure it was, a lot worse than that. But all he was doing is trying to teach you, like, listen, when we're running business, business is business.
Yeah.
And it's time to get to work. And however I got to say something to you to get the point across, that's how it's going to come out. We leave, we put the locks on their door. There's nobody in the world who loves you more, who will take care of you, watch out for you. Business is business, and work is, and family life is family life. And there needs to be that division, because when you're in business with your father, and I got to experience a small part of it, that it actually, like, full-time for me, it crossed over before my dad passed. That division is very hard. But he set that line very, very firmly and very early on with me, and I got it. And it did. It makes you the man that you become. Because if you can handle your father, you feel like
you can handle anybody.
There ain't nothing in the world that's going to take me out, right?
So I got to ask, you said you started making sandwiches in 2005 after college.
Yeah.
So, when did you officially start work? Did you, like, work in high school, like after work, or after school, or anything like that, or the weekends?
9 years old is, like, kind of rite of passage in our family. So I have 2 older sisters. They started when they were 9 years old. That's when you would come down on Saturdays, winter vacation, summer vacation, sweep the floors, clean the bathrooms. Our big thing was count the money back to the customers without a register, because we never had, like, a register where you type it in and it tells you. You had to be able to know how to, like, count it back. 75 cents makes $1. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is 10. Makes your 20. That was always a big lesson. And then for me, I was driving a forklift on Randolph Street, unloading semis.
At 9?
8, 9 years old, man. Before I was riding a bike fully, I knew how to drive a forklift. I mean, Is
that more impressive than getting a win in Fortnite? I'm just curious.
To a 9-year-old now? My son is 6, and at the warehouse for the Giardiniera, I put his ass on that forklift right away. Because
allegedly,
I wasn't being mean, but you put him on your lap and you press this and pull this and then push it forward. Listen, like my father would say, if people don't walk through that door, we don't put shoes on our feet.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing anybody ever said to me in my life. And then after he passed and I was here, and it was like, the 5th, 6th, 7th day in a row, your 12th, 13th, 14th hour, Minky, those words hit you so hard. Like, if people don't walk through that door, we don't put shoes on our feet. And when that clicks, that's when that deep appreciation for your clients, I know you're the exact same way, that's when that deep appreciation for when people come to choose you out of an enormous city like Chicago and the hundreds of thousands of places that you can go get gelato or a pizza or a sandwich, and they choose you. Right? The world, you walk in my store, the world stops. And I take care of what you got to. And I know, I'm sure
when I walked in here today, you were, like, front and center taking the orders, and this place was jam-packed, and that you were the most important guy behind the counter.
It's just to control the flow, and it's to show not only my customers, but the team that works for me, like, I will do
everything. I asked them that question today. Like, you're back there all the time.
Yeah. My dad, too, is like that.
Where are you going to be? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's
answering emails.
Well, the best general leads from the middle, right? You got to be able to do everything that everybody else is asked to do, and you got to be, I remember when I was working in D.C., I was the head of the National Italian American Foundation, and the toilet broke. And we had to run a tight budget, and I'm like, I'm fixing this toilet. I rolled up my sleeves, I put my necktie in my shirt. I actually ended up breaking the toilet, and then I had to get to but I tried, I really tried. Like,
lesson learned.
And that's from the way you were brought up.
Yeah. Angelo, when did you start officially working?
Same thing. I was making gelato when I was 12.
Wow.
The gentleman that my dad brought over, his name was Nicola, was a barista / gelatiere, gelato guy. Supposed to come and spend 6 months with us. Moved in our house and ended up spending 2 years with us. Cool cat. He was probably 19, 20. I was 10, 11, 12, right around that period. And I would obsessively watch him make this gelato, and he would do these really cool decorations on it. I mean, just typical of all of us, Italian passion,
Real artist.
Yeah, exactly.
With a little extra flair.
Yeah, with a little extra.
You gotta take pride.
That fine Italian hand, that's what it's about.
And that's what our parents taught us. But he bailed. My dad thought he convinced him to stay with us. He ends up bailing, going back to Italy, and who's making the gelato now? I'm making gelato at 10 years old, and my brother's roasting coffee at, at 12, right?
Wow.
We're running the back of the house there, and, every batch I would make, I would bring it out to my dad,
So you could try?
What do you think? You like the vanilla? You like the nocciola? And he would always compliment me. Once in a while, he'd be playing cards, briscola, whatever. He'd be like, un poco più limone, a little bit more.
You can never say it's good.
No, you gotta, you gotta have a conditional too.
Yeah, there's a condition.
For an audience that doesn't necessarily always know, right? Because people get this mixed up all the time. What makes gelato different from ice cream, American ice cream? Because
That's a great
it's
question.
a very
Good
different
question.
product.
Yeah. So I'll start out by saying, if you think about real good Italian food, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
Cleaner from a perspective of you're not saucing the hell out of it. You're not cheesing the hell out of it. You're enjoying the pasta, you're enjoying the tomatoes or whatever the ingredient is. Gelato is the same thing. It's real ingredients, right? So we're importing the best pistachio paste, the best hazelnut paste from Piemonte. When we're using fruit flavors, we're using either fresh or IQF fruit. So it's a real product. The second thing is the butterfat content. Traditional American ice cream is from 12%. Custard is 25 or 30%.
Custard's
on
the
average,
best for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On average, you're probably 12 to 15% butterfat. Whereas gelato, ours is 7% butterfat. But in Italy, if the further south you go, the less butterfat. In Sicily, they go down to 4 or 5%. When you go to northern Italy, it's typically 7, 8% butterfat. So the butterfat content is half. So yes, from a fat perspective, it's less, right? And then the last thing is traditional ice cream, they add air to it. They add overrun to it. So that builds volume. Air is free, and that's where they make their money, where,
It's more fluff, like a fluffier.
Yeah, it's fluff.
Yeah.
Think of making a meringue, it's the same thing. As you whip it, they add air to it, 10, 20, 30% overrun to add air to it, where traditional gelato is made in a batch freezer, and it gets its natural overrun, which is 20 to 30%, depending on the flavor. But yeah, so the basis of it is it's the ingredients, right? It's the butterfat content, and the last thing is the amount of air that's infused into it. So, yeah.
It eats different. Eats very different.
Yeah. And it tastes way different, too.
Yeah, and listen, once in a while, I like to have American ice cream. I
Sure.
like that, that buttery flavor.
It's like deep dish. So once in a blue moon, it's
Right,
great.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really
One
good
out of-
comparison.
1 out of 10, though.
When I can't
Right.
sleep, this is gonna be great.
Let me ask you guys a New York question. I was just in New York last week, and I love New York pizza. I'm not going to lie. I'm always staying in the meatpacking district just because I think it's
It's a
centrally
jumping
located.
area, too.
What's that?
It's
It's
ju-
a
jumping
happening
area.
place.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's centrally located. We were there for a convention, so it was near the Javits Center. But there's Joe's.
Joe's
that
Pizza.
has- Joe's Pizza that has two locations.
I think they have way more than 2 now. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So I think I went there at like 2 o'clock in the morning this past Friday, and it was
At Carmine Street? Like the main
it's
one?
right off of Bleecker.
Yeah, Carmine.
That's
Is
it.
it Carmine's? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's John's of Bleecker there.
Yes.
So that Joe's Pizza that cranks out all that pizza,
It's the slice comes out like you're waiting for the slice to come out, right?
dude. It's
incredible.
incredible. And I see a 3-deck small Blodgett oven. Are they slanging pies in the back too? It doesn't look like it.
No, I don't think they do deliveries like that there.
Meaning,
right?
is there more ovens in the back?
I'll be honest, the other Joe's don't compare it to that one. That's the one. Like if you go to the one in my area, Williamsburg, it's not going to be the same. It's not the same.
I don't think there's any place, very few places, when they duplicate the business, does it feel like I don't know if it's in the ovens that have been there a million years, or it's very hard to replicate.
It's hard to replicate good food because of the extra work. Like today when we saw JP behind the counter, and when you go by me, you see me, my dad, not me behind the counter. You see my dad, or you go by you see you by the counter. It's because we put that extra effort. And when you have employees, it's a little harder to get them to really love what they do, because that's the truth of the matter. So when you're opening 10 places, right?
It's going to get watered down at some point.
It gets watered down. As somewhere down the line, it's just impossible because there's not the same care. What I want to ask you about the gelato, what was the flavor that I never saw that when we were putting
Chicago Pothole.
Okay, Chicago Pothole.
So that flavor, we created that flavor for the Gelato World Tour.
Gelato World Tour.
So that was a competition that was here in 2016 that we took first place for. That took us to
Congratulations.
Italy. Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
So we wanted something unique. We wanted something to tie to
I want to go on
Chicago.
a Gelato
I was
World
gonna say
Tour.
that sounds like the best vacation.
If you're going on a world tour, that's
Yeah.
the world tour to go on.
I'm leaving my tight shirts at home for that one. That sounds fantastic.
But we wanted something, something to tie to Chicago, right? Because we were competing for the Americas. It was like South America, Central America, and North America. So I competed against people from Brazil,
I don't know.
Canada, everywhere. Some badasses too. Some really good chefs. But so Chicago Pothole is basically our rendition of Rocky Road, right? Chicago tends to have a lot of potholes, right? And a lot of it has to do with the snow and the salt that they put down to melt the snow,
Yeah.
right? So, you get a lot of potholes. So Rocky Road, Chicago Pothole. But ours is a really nice premium dark chocolate with marshmallows, candied walnuts, a chocolate ganache that's drizzled throughout,
Nice.
and then a little bit more chocolate and some nice chocolate chunk pieces in it.
Ah, so
Sounds amazing.
It's fire.
All right, so for everybody listening to this, you do wholesale and you ship direct to consumer.
We
as
do,
well?
yeah. So we basically we have coffee roasting, gelato, and we have a frozen pizza line that derived from masa from our restaurant. That part of our business, I do with one of my daughters, Gianna, and my son Joey. He supervises production. That business wholesales the gelato direct to restaurants, direct to consumer through retailers, right? So different grocery stores, whether it's Mariano's or Dom's or a ton of them here. And then we sell to some of the best restaurants here.
What's the best way for somebody to get your gelato? Like, let's say for the wholesale side and direct to consumer, what are the routes to take?
We have a website called Verovia, VEROVIA.net.
Okay.
And you can get it from there.
Okay.
what's your favorite flavor?
I'm a chocolate guy, man. I love
Just
chocolate.
like straight chocolate?
Just straight dark chocolate.
Your
I love
No Cholo was fire.
it. Thank you.
JP, what's your
It's
favorite?
pistachio.
That's my
Yeah,
favorite.
pistachio to me.
Pistachio.
Pistachio to me is the best gelato that exists, only because, like Angelos, like that dark brownish color that it has, and it's like real pistachio being used, and not like that
Right.
bright
Like
green
the fake
crap.
I have to ask.
I'll eat the green crab too. Don't get me wrong. I like that,
Yeah,
but the
I
real
wouldn't even have-
Sicilian.
Yeah, it's like brown.
Yeah.
It's got
I
that
like the
almond
real
flavor.
Sicilian, like olive green.
Stracciatella deserves honorable mention too.
Yeah.
Yeah, stracciatella is great. I'm a Sicilian pistachio guy. That one to me, when you're Sicilian, pistachio, it's like you. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making up, but it's just like in you, psychologically in you. I have that. I can't get enough.
I
of
agree
it.
with you.
You like
Like
stracciatella?
I said, his is like a little. It's like that brown color, so it's
Yeah, it's real.
Legit.
It's natural.
Yeah, it's
legit.
Yeah, and
You taste the difference.
Unfortunately, though, a lot of people in this country don't appreciate that. You
Yeah.
know? So
Why isn't it green?
yeah, right.
Right.
It,
And they
they
think
don't.
something's wrong with it. And you're like, no, that's the best one
That's
that there
really
is.
good.
It's changed, right? As the stuff that we ate, eating arugula and radicchio and dandelions growing up was like, it's like
Right.
going to school with the Nutella sandwich, right?
What is that,
And some
conky?
crust-
You're
Yeah,
weird.
right. Some crusty ass Italian bread. What are you eating? Chocolate? Look
Yeah,
how big
chocolate
Nutella is.
sandwich.
It's the same thing, Mortadella is popular now.
I'm asking an important
Yeah.
question. What gelato sells the most, though?
It's probably vanilla.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I always think it's No Cholo. Like, I'm
What does
so
that say
biased.
about the world? That vanilla's the most popular thing out there, like plain. I just want plain,
Yeah. Ours is Italian vanilla, so it's got a little bit of egg in it.
Yeah.
But I would say pound for pound, it's got to be vanilla. It's got to be that in ice cream too.
What's your favorite sandwich here?
My favorite sandwich here, and I always get it, is fresh mozz, tomato, prosciutto, lettuce, and olive oil. I'm not a vinegar guy.
No vinegar,
Today,
right.
I went light because I figured I'm going to be on camera. I got to watch my figure a little
I
bit.
should've
and
thought
I put
about
turkey
that.
on it. So
Turkey.
I got to ask why we say Mozz.
I don't know.
Instead of
I say
moots?
mozz.
No, we don't say we say
Mutts. You guys say mutts.
People say mutz, mozz. I don't say either of those things.
fresh mutts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fresh
Proper
mozz, yeah.
Italian.
We say mutts.
It's like
Yeah.
you guys were talking about Giardiniera. In Italian, it's Giardiniera,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
But Chicago accent.
But you got a Giardiniera.
That's why
Giardiniera.
George used to call me. He rest in peace. Bonanima George Randazzo was the founder of the Sports Hall of Fame.
Good man.
He was like my third grandfather.
Good man.
I came out here all the time. I miss that guy. It's the first time I've been to Chicago without him, actually.
Son's a badass too.
Both of his sons are badasses, yeah.
Shout outs to him.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
big shout outs to the Randazzo family.
Yeah.
Some of the best
Wonderful
people.
people.
May George rest in peace. I love that guy. But I always used to love, I wish I had a voicemail because in his accent, my name's John, but he called me Jan. Jan, we got a big thing to do. And I miss that. I love that. That was that Chicago Jan. Made me happy.
Oh,
Jan, we're going to this place. I used to get so excited.
All right, but what about what would you say is your most popular sandwich here?
Our Mr. G.
Mr. G, that's what we had today.
That's the house special. That's the one I named after my father after he had passed. Basically took all his favorite stuff, sharp imported provolone, prosciutto, supersata, Genoa salami. And then I really like to cook. Growing up in this as a warehouse, this was like always kind of like my pantry, so I really enjoy cooking. And we had access like to the best stuff. And I'd make this vinaigrette with a truffle mustard. So from Italy, it's Dijon mustard with bits of black truffle. Thin it out with some balsamic vinegar, emulsify in the extra virgin olive oil, it makes a dressing. And I would make it as a salad dressing.
You're fancy.
So fancy.
I just buy ranch.
I'd make that as a salad dressing. And my
Yeah, it's
buddies
amazing.
and my wife, who was like, my girlfriend or fiance at the time, was like, you should put this on a sandwich. And it all was kind of coinciding. So put the truffle vinaigrette on there, marinated artichokes, fresh basil for a little, pop of freshness. And then our signature move to me is that we mix the red wine vinegar and the oregano with the lettuce before it goes on a sandwich.
Yeah,
So
like
you
it
get
gives
a
a
nice,
little, yeah.
Well, you get a consistent flavor throughout the whole
Yeah.
thing. It's not just biting into a piece of bread that has a little vinegar on it. I think that's a really important thing. We sell that like you wouldn't believe, and then the Italian is second to that. And then even behind that is like the spicier, the prosciutto, and then the turkey is like fifth.
What did you go in college for? What did you major in?
Political science.
I was
nothing
gonna
to do
say
with business.
the
I
way
didn't take
you're
one-
making sauces. I didn't know if you went to like culinary school. or
Nah,
something.
you would imagine I would have taken like a business class or a cooking class. My original plan. My father didn't force me into doing this.
Yeah, what
as
made
a
you?
career.
What made you want to do it? Because I feel like once like a lot of like the kids of Italian American business owners, the second they get a college degree, it's like, oh, I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to follow those.
I
footsteps.
didn't want to. So I had to work here growing up, no choice. When it got time for me to, be of high school age and stuff like that, my father said, "You don't have to do this." In fact, if my dad almost like pushed me away from doing it more than anything, if we're being very, very honest, and he said, "Go to school. I'll pay for whatever you want to do, and go find what you love." And I was like, "Great. I don't want to do this. I'll see you later." I went to DePaul. It's in Lincoln Park. Nice school. Political science. I was going to get into law school afterwards. I wanted to be a lawyer. And halfway through my sophomore year, I don't even have the words for it, to be honest with you, man. It was like a magnetic pull. Like, what are you doing? Who wants to be a lawyer? You know what I mean? Like, you have this amazing family history on this amazing corner. And this wasn't like Randolph Street then. I mean, this was still wholesale market. It wasn't like, now there's Nobu across the street from us. This wasn't like, I didn't get into it because it was a fancy neighborhood and like up and coming. It was still a rough neighborhood. And what I learned was a very rough shaped business when I got into it and looked in like the books for the first time in my life. It was like my destiny. And I'm not trying to sound cliche or like make a story of it. Honestly, I couldn't explain it. I was like, man, this is where I need to be. And I told my dad, and he was happy, especially because I came to the decision on my own. And he was, you got to finish school, and I was fine with that. And up and down Halstead from Lincoln Park to the West Loop. And I would go to school and come here or go see customers. And we started like that. So
When did you guys start making subs?
I graduated, summer, June 2005. By December 2005, we started doing
It still
sandwiches.
took you 6 months to convince your old man, though.
No, my dad let me do whatever I want.
Yeah?
He didn't give a shit.
love that.
Yeah,
well,
that's-
not that he didn't give a shit. He knew something had to happen.
Yeah.
Right? He also fully trusted me. I never came to my father and was like, "Hey, let's open up a club." You know what I mean? Like,
That's funny. That's what I used to do to my
sandwiches.
dad.
Well, maybe that's why I busted
Because I was a club promoter for like 6 years.
Right.
But Dad, let's open up a club.
It wasn't like,
give you a buck
I
in the
didn't,
shop.
right. I didn't like want to stop doing what we did and turn into something else.
Yeah.
You know, sandwiches to me was, we're not making money doing wholesale. We stayed the small mom and pop. We didn't take the technology curve.
Small margins, a lot of
We did it
competition.
all family relationship.
Yeah.
That's how you know. And the exclusives that my great grandpa had started with those products, those have ran out. Now there's everybody who has everything that we have. You didn't have specialties that nobody else had. That's, you know, we would sell incanestrato back in the day, like the Sicilian cheese. Nobody had it, right? And it was still like when the worms were inside it. Like, we sold that
That's
shit,
awesome.
right?
I
it's
love
best.
weird food.
Oh my
You
God.
pick it with the
Yeah.
bread
Give me
and everything
weird,
like
give me
that. You
gut
kidding me?
meat, organ meat. Hey, I love stuff like that.
Bacala. We had all
that
that. We had the stuff that people didn't have, right? And so I just wanted to, like, you know, maybe we could start to make a little bit of money here. So sandwiches to me was like the next natural step, right? We have all this stuff. We sell all to these amazing delis. And one thing I'll say about that is, you know, there's a ton of Italian sandwich spots in Chicago. And Bari.
Is there
one
any
on
places
Grand
that really
Avenue.
inspired you?
All of them. I mean, I got to, as the salesman for the wholesale company, I got to watch how other people were meticulous on how they run the business, the quality that they buy, how they do this, their approach to this, what products that they use. And I took that all in. I had like a free education from it, right? And one of the biggest spots that we sold to was Bari on Grand Avenue, Frank and Ralph that still run it today. And like gold standard of sandwich shop.
Yeah,
I'll
another
still
institution,
till today because we're so far late in the game compared to them. They went through the same thing with their father. He was a butcher. They had a grocery store. There was a bakery next door, D'Amato's, where we get our bread. And the city guys would come into Bari and say, make me a sandwich, because they had like the deli. And the father, Ralph and Frank's father, I don't know if you know, he would say, you buy what you want from me, you buy the bread next door, you make your own sandwich in the street.
Yeah.
And Ralph and Frank would be like, Dad, let's just make sandwiches.
That's the
you know?
the ultimate Italian answer.
Well, maybe.
No. I don't cut the bread. You take it outside. Yeah.
Right. And they turned into like
That's incredible.
gold standard icon Chicago sandwiches.
Still there.
Still there, still rocking. And I will say, you know, everybody makes a good sandwich, but when you say like Chicago sandwiches, Bari, to me, they're still always going to be up there. They've done it way longer than us. We used to sell them their meat, right, before we even made sandwiches. When I knew I was going to start, I went to Ralph and Frank, and I told them, listen, I don't have a future at my store if we stay wholesale, and I'm thinking about starting to do some sandwiches. And, you know, they weren't the type of guys like you had to ask them for their blessing. I just wanted them to know it from me first.
That's figura.
Yeah,
you
that's actually
did bella
nice.
figura, yeah.
And they told me, because this is how Chicago people are, Jimmy, Chicago's a big pie, go get a piece of it. They were way more interested in me finding a way of sustaining our family business than worried about a competitor in the sandwich business. And that's how
There's
Chicago
two type of
is.
people in this world. You know, people that the other side would be a person like,
Go fuck
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
I'll never
yeah,
talk to you
yeah.
again.
I feel
Get
like
your
in
stuff
New
out
York,
of my
it'd be
store.
like you'd be make competition for nonsense.
But I
That's
think-
it's a bigger problem
I
for
think
us.
when you're
Italians.
really successful though, like when you're at the top, you don't look at people as competition, and
Probably
you look at
true.
more like that way.
That's probably true.
To me, if you're on Grand Avenue, go to Bari. If you're on Randolph Street, come here. If you're on Taylor Street, go to Fontano's.
There's plenty action.
It's an embarrassment of riches what this city offers you to that any part, any corner, any street, Riviera on Harlem Avenue. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Yeah, that's why you're
You
blessed
get the
though.
sandwich depending on where you're at.
Yeah,
That's how we do it out here. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
And we root for each other. These people like me are supporting their family off of making sandwiches. What am I going to say? Oh, Bari sandwiches are terrible because... No. This is how they support their family. My father would come back and talk about a scaffiata in the back of the head if you ever talk like that about another family.
Yeah.
Like, we don't do that. When people are on lists and stuff like that, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like... it's great, believe me, but it makes me uncomfortable because, to me... Your sandwich, what you should have, dictates by where you're at in the city, not who's got the best this. We all make great shit. I mean, it's fucking Chicago. We got amazing bread. You got your hands on anything you want. You know, we take the extra steps of slicing them all fresh to order and stuff like that.
that's
but,
a big difference right there though.
yeah, and D'Amato's bread, to me, best bakery you
you
can
guys
get
got
your...
good bread. I know very good bread. I like the
That's
bread.
like a nice.
You could do
little-
everything
yeah,
that we do that I'm very meticulous on about how we slice it fresh to order and what we use. If you put that on a different piece of bread, not taken away from any bakeries that we know and love and family, friends, and stuff like that, but that bread, there is no better bread to make a sandwich on. than
agree.
D'Amato's
I agree.
French. It doesn't exist.
it's great.
It's like a pillow on the inside. You get the crunch on the outside. Unbelievable family. We've done business back and forth forever. When we were in wholesale, we sold them like sesame seeds and tomato products. And when I had the chance to do sandwiches, it's not like we had a bread tasting. I went to D'Amato's, then I told Vic, I need bread. I'm going to start doing sandwiches.
What I love about both of you guys is you both have the store and also the other side of the business with you're selling to Giardiniera online.
Yep.
So tell us where you could get it, how you could get it.
Yeah, so we do direct to consumer for that. TasteRealChicago.com is the name of that website where you order the Giardiniera seasoning, the muffalata, gift packs, all that stuff. We ship it coast to coast, anywhere to you. And then I do the distribution here as well. You know how like we have a hot dog stand in our Home Depots? You know about that?
Yeah, we have sausage.
We got something at Home Depot, right?
We have a sausage stand. I mean, the one on Woodhaven.
Yeah.
You got
It's
something like
it's
that,
not
right?
something-
Our
I'm
big
not
thing
the kind of
here
guy
is
who's at Home
like
Depot much, but yeah.
the Home Depot
I
hot
thought
dog
you said you were
stand.
fixing toilets.
I try to do stuff. I'm not good at it. Although
He tried to fix
I'm
it.
starting to garden now, so I've been going to Home Depot. And I finally
There
learned
you
how to
go.
plant the
It's a
garden.
beautiful
yeah.
garden section.
Yeah, it's very
So
nice.
when
yeah.
you go to Home Depot for gardening stuff
Yeah.
in Chicago, there's usually a hot dog stand. And those are very dear friends of ours. I sell my Giardiniera to places like that, right? And they use it they make beef sandwiches and hot dogs and
They have
frankfurter.
ketchup in the Home Depot hot dog stand?
Look at that masa.
Probably. Angelo uses it at his place. Like
Hot, mild, and muffaletta.
hot mild and the muffalata on the muffalata sandwich.
Muffaletta sandwich.
And so on the distribution end, I'm growing it with like kind of strategic partners that like really fit the form of like a real Chicago, like Angelo does, that appreciates, it ain't the cheapest Giardiniera you're going to buy, and that's because of the quality inside the jar. And you have a brand ambassador behind it. Like, I've stumped for Angelo, the Home Depot hot dog stands. We recently picked up Rosati's pizza places, which are, it's a family that grew them all. They're all over the country, and they use our Giardiniera back of house. So, I've really tried to grow that as its own thing. I get my kids involved because they're a little too small to come here now with how the business has changed. But the warehouse for that is out by where I live. My wife and her friend, they run the day-to-day stuff, printing the orders, packing it, shipping it. And I go there on Sundays with my kids, and they get the stories that I did. This is your name on this jar. And this guy out in the middle of Alabama or whatever is ordering our Giardiniera.
Cool.
And that's why there's shoes
makes
on
you
your
feel
feet.
good.
And that's why we have the home that we do. And I'm not going to force them into this thing, but to me, the legacy is the work ethic, the appreciation for what it takes to support your family when you're a leader, how you approach that, how you take care of people. That's the legacy that I'm supposed to pass on. It ain't cases of tomatoes. It ain't sandwiches. It's all that other stuff that makes, as an Italian culture, very proud. That's what makes us who we are as people. And that's what you got to get down to the next generation. If I do that, I'll be ecstatic.
And I got to say something, as you guys are from the East Coast and we're from Chicago, and I go to different events for different cultures, whether it's Greek cultures or you see these people hanging and just really working together, helping each other. Going back to what he was saying, we have to help each other. As Italian Americans, we have to help everybody, right? But as Italian Americans, sometimes there's that little stigma of, well, we don't want to help each other out. There's that jealousy. People are.
It's so crazy because this is what I was going to say.
talk about this all the time.
And you're doing it for
Yeah,
me.
we gotta, and you guys, I hand it to you guys for what you guys are doing for the Italian community on the East Coast here. We got to send a shout out to Nicolette. Right?
Yeah,
To my
I was
niece.
just about to do it because I'll
Yeah.
get killed if I
Go
don't.
ahead. Yeah.
Honestly, I was just gonna say, like, I'm so impressed about like the Italian American Chicago culture because being a New Yorker, I feel like we think we're the best. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's what it's like in our face. But there's Italian American culture all over this country, and like over the last couple of months, I really have learned a lot about what's going on here, and like especially with the Avanti group, like that's why we're here right now.
Yep.
Because right after this, we're going to the Avanti event, and there's going to be 180 young, excited
the guy on the roof said
Italian-Americans.
150, so it's 150.
Oh, 150. I'm sorry, 150.
Those other 30 are going to be
capacity.
waiters and waitresses. Yeah. Fire
It doesn't
inspector.
count.
One of them's a fire inspector.
So I love having these guys as my co-hosts because I never get
He's
in
always
trouble.
fixing you.
But yeah, I'm super impressed with the events because I'll be honest, like we have a massive following, the biggest Italian American following when it comes to this kind of stuff, like a brand. And for us to get 160 people in a room is
Big deal.
possible.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
We
Like,
we
gotta
live in a
pay
place
to
where
do it,
people
you know?
compete with each other, and you're talking about going to baries and their enthusiasm, excitement for you, and like, when we first started talking to each other, he's got the biggest brand here. This is the biggest Italian American podcast. We've probably got the second biggest Italian American podcast, and
I think we got the only two though.
no, there's a lot out there now. Yeah, I don't want to give him any free airtime, but I track these things. There's a lot, but we didn't treat each other like competition. We treated each other like, how do we make each other?
Yeah.
How do we help each other? And
do
it turned into a real friendship, and that's a
gotta
beautiful
do it.
thing because
And we got to motivate the younger people
To think like
to
that.
think that way, man.
Yeah.
We have to
we
help.
think we got to cannibalize each other and kill each other, and then what do? You're left as the only one in the species, nothing left to eat. Just eat other stuff, help each other grow. That's how the species.
Eat
grow.
sandwiches and gelato.
Eat sandwiches, just no ranch dressing.
Yeah, little Giardiniera.
No, but yeah, I do want to say, especially to you guys, thanks for helping us come out here.
No, it's great.
Honestly, this is something, when I came here months ago, I said, like, I was so fascinated by just the history of this place. And you would tell me all the stories, like the entrance used to be there,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
so like, I feel like there's almost like an Italian American museum too. So this was like something I really want to do, and I really appreciate you guys bringing us out here. I appreciate Avanti, Nicolette for setting up this event, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. And I don't know if you guys wanted to bring up anything else.
What do you got, H?
No, I mean, I'm grateful to be here. Yeah, thank you to Nicolette for definitely set it up. But I'm proud of you guys, man. You guys are doing some great things. And
Thank you.
It's nice to see as Italian Americans. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the people that support us and come to our restaurants, and you know what I mean, our family, and it's all love, man. We gotta.
Yeah, we
gotta
really
do the
appreciate
right
it.
thing.
I'll make sure to put the description, the website's in the description.
I appreciate
so
it.
everybody
Yeah.
could find your stuff easily.
We got to plug the IAFL, because if we
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
have,
absolutely.
if we didn't
Yeah,
have that,
yeah.
none of this would happen.
Yeah. So yeah, we're at IFL now. We never had to announce it or anything.
No,
We've
I
just
mean, I
been
think
doing that.
we've been I thought about it as you're talking. I'm like, if we didn't have, we had this IAFL, Italian American Future Leaders Conference, that we ran together with our other friends and colleagues, and that's where we met Nicolette and the team from Avanti and
We
Pasquale.
met Muscles
and-
Madanat.
Poor
I
guy.
can't call him Pasquale.
Muscles Madanata.
Do you know-
he is the biggest. He's the biggest muscle Italian I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
But
And Palladino.
yeah, we met all these great
Yeah.
kids that were doing great stuff, and all of that was born out of this idea that we wanted to have a conference where the future leaders of the community could get together, and there was no competition. It was all, how do we rise
Yeah, so
together.
I
So
gotta
that's
give
spirits
I
and
gotta
everything.
give John his flowers, because the conference him and his family did in Florida, we had young Italian American kids from all over the country. Cleveland, New Orleans, Chicago, New York,
Denver,
Denver,
California.
like Italians
yeah.
in Jersey. Like what?
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't know New York and Jersey. All of a sudden, we have like these young Italian kids dancing like New Orleans jazz music.
Yeah, it was wild.
Like, when
Yeah.
we were doing the karaoke.
It was awesome. That
And
was the best part.
yeah, so basically, like we are super excited to push the envelope here and challenge everybody to really do this, because you see other cultures, like they still speak the languages,
Right.
and here we are, like we can't even like sit down at a table together. So
It's important, Mike. That's what you're supposed to, like I alluded to a little bit. Like the legacy to pass on is stuff like that, right? And if you don't embrace the culture, like a good restaurant, right? Like a good restaurant or a place like this, you're supposed to bring people in, teach them the way, and you want that person to do well, and that you want them to go open up their own spot,
yeah,
right? And that's how you put the culture above your own self-interest, right? And if everybody's protecting it like that, then it never runs out. It never goes out of style. That becomes in vogue, and it's longevity. Like this place, we do fun events, we do collaborations.
we just had a NASCAR driver I was talking to.
Jeffrey Earnhardt
Yeah.
outside, he's racing in the thing. It was so cool. But like I like working with real people like that. Like Jeffrey Earnhardt, amazing name in the racing community, stuff like that. Before we signed up to do anything with him, like you, I'd met him months previous. We talked on the phone, just bullshitting his guys. And like you, I had seen your stuff way before you ever came here. But when I met you in person, you could tell having a 2-minute conversation with anybody. I'm like, man, this is a real deal guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
No, and I mean, if
Same with you though.
if
Same
you
with both
weren't,
guys,
we
yeah.
wouldn't be sitting here. Like it's amazing. The following you have and the platform you have, obviously incredible. But I don't do shit because
Have
it's
you guys
with
ever done a
somebody's-
podcast before?
No, I mean I've been on a few of them, but not like definitely not my own and not nowhere near this large. But that's why that name of the Giardiniera business is Taste Real Chicago. Those words work all together, and they also work independently, right? Taste and real and Chicago and real. I mean, I drive that home ad nauseum because what works here, all the changes that I made, the stuff that I didn't touch, all the real deal stuff, that's what makes us what we are. The real relationships where, you know, he knew my father and my father knew his father and we do business together now, real deal stuff. Knowing you, I don't whether you or this enormous platform that you have or Jeffrey Earnhardt who runs, you know, drives a NASCAR that has nothing to do with my realm and demographic, it's because it's real relationships. And to me, that's the best stuff spawns from that. So that's what I always run like my tests through. Like, you know, does it make sense that a brand, is it real deal stuff? And it is, we can make it successful off of there.
No, I really appreciate it. And honestly, just the fact like you did this while you were open, I really do appreciate it because you guys were super busy and you stopped everything.
Yeah, it makes
I think
it
you
fun,
got
man.
somebody to cover your shift to come sit down with us.
Somebody's got to tap in eventually.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can't.
But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank
Guys,
you.
make sure to check them out. Enjoy the rest of your summer, guys. Ciao.